Reassurance is a very big part of communication. It relates a lot in the workforce to things like being able, being allowed to take on a new role, many other ways. Reassurance is very common. And so I remember a time which is just an example of the need to reassure people. And it was when I was working as a truck off-sider. So the truck driver was delivering like 6 ton worth of food products to different restaurants. And I would help him unload these food products from his truck, and then we would put them on a trolley, and one of us would take the trolley into the restaurant where the other guy waited with the stack of food products, and we'd change over. Then the other guy would wait with the food products so the public didn't steal them, and the new person would walk the trolley with all the products into the restaurant and put the products in the freezer or the fridge or the dry storage, wherever they need to go. And I was new. I just started this job, and I'd worked with a bunch of different guys at the company, and this was the first time I was working with this truck driver. And so we're taking loads in and bringing the trolley back, and the next guy would take a load in from the truck and bring the trolley back to the truck. Back and forth we would go and taking it in turns into the restaurant. And at one point, it was the last load to be taken in, and it was my turn. And so he goes, yeah, after we stacked up the trolley and I was about to wheel the trolley in, he goes, yeah, make sure you grab the onions off the floor and put them into that shelf just right there nearby. And so I was like, oh yeah, okay. And so in my head I was thinking maybe he means there's some onion rings, because we had been delivering all sorts of products, including onion rings, in these boxes. And so to this fast food restaurant, so I figured, okay, so there's a loose box of onion rings somewhere I've got to put in on a shelf. And then he was like, and so I said something like that. I was like, oh yeah, no worries, put the onion rings on the shelf. And then he was like, no, it's not that, it's they're just by the door. And you've got to put them back. And so I listened to that, and it wasn't really clear, because what he actually meant was he had taken a bag of onions that was already in the shop, in the restaurant, a fresh bag of onions, not in a box. They were just close to the door, and he grabbed them off the shelf and put them by the door to keep the door waved open as we took in our trolley in. And I guess he was assuming that I might have seen those onions when I went in with the trolley, which I hadn't, because you just go through the door, unpack the stuff, come back out as fast as you can. You're trying to be efficient. And so I didn't quite get what he was saying, but I realized that there was these onions somewhere. And so I was like, and then he was like, I could tell that, there was anxiety building up in him, and he wasn't confident that I knew what he was talking about, and he thought I was going to stuff it up, get it wrong, and it wasn't going to get done properly. And so he was like, oh yeah, no, don't worry about it, I'll take him in, and I'll take it in. But it was my turn to take the trolley in, and so I wanted to do the job because it was my turn. And I realized, okay, and at some point he had said hold and open the door, and I was pretty sure, okay, there's onions holding open the door, something to do with onions, just something to do with onions holding open the door. I get it. And so I realized, okay, so I have to, he doesn't think I get it, but I have to reassure this guy that I do get it. And he was an anxious guy, and he was having difficulty explaining it. He didn't explain it very clearly. But this is common, right? Especially with people that have an anxiety, they become tongue-tied. They don't have the vocabulary. They can't think of it on the spot because they're going through some form of panic. And so I knew all this was going on. He was at this level, high level of anxiety. And so I had to reassure him that I got what was going on and I understood it to the level of anxiety that he was on. And so I said really clearly, oh, no, I get it. Don't worry. There's onions holding open the door. I'll take them out. I'll take them out. I'll move them and I'll put them on the shelf. And so I said it in a way that was confident and clear with a loud voice. And my paraphrasing of the words clearly explained the task, because this isn't just about being confident. That's a big part of it, to alleviate someone's anxiety, to make them assured that you know what you're talking about. Confidence is a big part of it, but people will fake confidence as well. And to make them even more reassured, sometimes you actually need to state the task in such a clear way, paraphrase it in such a way that it's obvious that, okay, this guy gets what he's talking about. So there was the confidence delivered with the facial expressions, the tone of voice, and the language I was using. And there was also the way I re-said this task to make it clear and obvious that I knew what was going on. And the way I actually said it to him at the time probably sounded a lot more confident than I did, and a lot more assuring than it did just then. But it worked, and he was assured by what I said, and he got it. And it's a small thing, and it's a small example, but the same dynamics are commonly at work when you're dealing with so many different people that need to assure people and that need to realize their level of anxiety, and to meet that level of anxiety, to assure them. So you give a higher level of assurance to someone who's at a higher level of anxiety. So it's all about seeing, does he have confidence that I understand what he's talking about? You got to give them the confidence. You got to make them confident that you understand what you're talking about. And it's about seeing, okay, he doesn't have confidence in me. I have to assure him. And so you work to do that. And it's sort of like speaking, translating what you're saying into a high level of anxiety language. So that's the language he needs to be spoken at. That's the language he speaks. He speaks high level of anxiety. So you got to translate what you would have said, because you might have already understood it. You might have said you understood it. But just saying you understand it isn't enough. You got to see, okay, he doesn't trust me. I've got to translate and communicate to him that I understand it. So I've got to translate just I understand to a form of language, a form of communicating that makes a person at a high level of anxiety feel comfortable. Yeah, that's about it. It's December 2024. I'm Damien from Enneagram Alive and maybe some other YouTube channels. Thanks.